What happens when a billionaire loses everything? Power, family, name, and the woman he once discarded rises to take his throne, with triplets who refuse to carry his last name. Hey Alcote Stories family, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it right now? Drop your city and time in the comments below. We love seeing our global family coming together. Snow fell gently across Manhattan, blanketing the city in a quiet elegance that felt almost cinematic, like the universe itself was leaning in to witness the moment Sofia Reyes had dreamed of since she was a girl. Only tonight, that dream was about to shatter. She stood in the center of the luxurious penthouse suite at the Plaza Hotel, her heart pounding with anticipation and hope, every detail meticulously arranged. The air smelled of soft white roses, her favorite, and the gentle flicker of candlelight danced against the walls like warm memories of love, like promises waiting to be sealed. The velvet box sat on the center of the glass table like a crown jewel. Inside it, the positive pregnancy test that would change both their lives forever. She had spent hours perfecting everything, folding napkins into delicate hearts, rehearsing her words in front of the mirror, telling herself that Daniel would cry tears of joy the moment he found out he was going to be a father. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from joy. She remembered the way Daniel once whispered that she was his miracle in a world of chaos, the woman who grounded him when his own world spun with the weight of legacy and corporate greed. But as the clock ticked toward midnight and the soft jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker faded into silence, a gnawing unease began to bloom in her chest. She checked her phone. No message, no missed calls, just silence. Then the sound of the suite door creaking open froze her breath in her throat. She turned, her smile ready to bloom, but what she saw paralyzed her. Daniel Blackwood, her husband of barely a month, stumbled in, reeking of scotch and expensive cologne, the light in his once loving eyes replaced by something cruel, distant, and ice-cold. "You're still here?" he slurred, shrugging off his coat with a careless flick of his wrist. Sophia's smile faded as quickly as her heartbeat stumbled. "Daniel, I made dinner. I have something to tell you," she said softly, trying to close the distance, but he raised his hand to stop her, eyes narrowed like she was an inconvenience, a shadow of some mistake he didn't know how to erase. "Don't," he hissed. "I can't do this. We can't do this. This whole marriage. It was a mistake." The words sliced her like glass. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "A mistake," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "My family never approved of you, Sophia. You were a temporary rebellion, a distraction. I married you on impulse. My mother threatened to cut me off. My father said you were beneath us. And now, every time I look at you, I hear their voices." Sophia took a step back as if physically struck. "So, you're choosing them over me? Over us?" she whispered, one hand instinctively resting on her stomach. He scoffed. "There is no us." She couldn't breathe. Everything in her chest tightened like the room itself was collapsing. She moved to the table, picking up the velvet box with trembling fingers. "You should know something before you go," she said, opening the box with what little strength she had left. He looked down and paused. For a brief moment something flickered in his eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. "You're pregnant," he said blankly. "Congratulations," he added sarcastically. "But that doesn't change anything. I'm flying to London tonight. I've already packed my things from the penthouse. My lawyer will contact you." Sophia stood frozen as he turned, walked away and slammed the door without another word. She didn't scream. She didn't chase after him. She just stood there, surrounded by roses that mocked her, candles that still burned for a love that no longer existed, and silence that rang louder than any heartbreak she had ever known. Hours later, her trembling hands held a cheap motel key in Queens, the smell of bleach and broken dreams staining the air. She curled on the edge of a stained mattress, hugging, her knees as sobs shook her chest. Her world had collapsed in the blink of an eye. She turned on the TV for distraction, her eyes barely registering the grainy local news until the screen lit up with the image of Daniel's private jet taking off from JFK. Blackwood Holdings aired "Daniel Blackwood departs for London amid rumours of a sudden marriage split," the anchor said casually. Sophia covered her mouth as another sob tore from her throat. There he was, Daniel, smiling, boarding the jet like he hadn't just ripped her heart out. She reached for her belly, her fingers gently pressing against the life growing inside her. the only warmth she had left in a world that had suddenly gone cold. Snow continued to fall outside the window of that dark motel room, as if the sky itself wept with her, burying the night in a blanket of white that couldn't hide the truth. She had been abandoned, betrayed, and broken. And yet, inside her, 3 tiny heartbeats still held on to hope. Sophia stared at the television screen in that dim Queen's motel room, her tear-streaked face lit only by the soft flicker of the news anchor's voice fading into silence. And though the world around her remained still, hers was shattering piece by piece like thin glass beneath the weight of betrayal. The pain didn't come in loud screams or broken plates. It came in the quiet, aching realization that she had not only lost her husband, but perhaps her career, her identity, and her future, all in one night. Days passed like fog, thick and indistinct. She dressed in the same clothes, her only focus being survival. She emailed her supervisor at Ellison Grant Finance, hoping for a return to normalcy. No reply. She called the HR desk, disconnected. Confused, she walked into the lobby of a smaller financial firm downtown, resume in hand and hope in her voice. But the receptionist's stiff smile quickly faded when she typed Sophia's name. "I'm sorry. We're not hiring," the woman said, her eyes flickering with recognition and something close to pity. Sophia tried 3 more firms, then 5, then 11. All closed doors, all stiff apologies. Some never even let her past reception. It wasn't until a young analyst she once mentored pulled her into a back hallway and whispered, "They said you stole proprietary code, that you slept with a hedge fund director for insider trades." Her knees buckled. The girl added, almost apologetically, "Word is, the Blackwoods ruin anyone who crosses them." Sophia felt the breath leave her lungs. The name alone stung like venom. She had no idea Daniel's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was calculated, executed, lethal. The rumors spread like wildfire. Clients she once advised now turned their backs. Emails returned with silence. Recruiters ghosted her. It was as if someone had pressed delete on her existence in the financial world. A month ago, she was a rising name on Wall Street, praised for predicting a market crash before it happened. Now she was labeled a fraud, a cheater, a disgrace. She sat in the corner of a free clinic days later, waiting for confirmation of what her body already knew. The nausea, the dizziness, the fatigue. A nurse called her name, and the doctor, an older woman with kind eyes, welcomed her with a soft smile. "You're further along than you think," the doctor said gently. "How many weeks?" Sophia asked, her voice low and dry. "Almost 9. That made sense. Around the time of the honeymoon, the last time she felt loved. "There's more," the doctor said, flipping the monitor. "You're not just pregnant. You're carrying triplets." The word hit Sophia like thunder in her bones. Triplets. Not 1 heartbeat. 3. 3 lives growing inside her, while the world outside branded her a liar. The doctor touched her arm. "They're healthy for now, but you'll need extra care. Your body will be working overtime." Sophia nodded, her throat too tight to speak. She left the clinic numb, staring at the ultrasound images pressed between her frozen fingers. The black and white shadows, the only proof that something pure was still growing inside her. But reality hit fast. No firm would touch her. Her savings dwindled. Her landlord slipped eviction notices under the door like death threats. She sold her engagement ring first, then her designer bags, then her furniture piece by piece. She applied for a job at a diner, but the manager asked why someone with an Ivy League degree wanted to serve pancakes. Her belly wasn't showing yet, but her desperation was. The once celebrated analyst who shared stages with financial moguls now stood in unemployment lines behind men with tattoos and broken dreams. She tried to write her own code again, to pitch freelance consulting, but every firm responded the same. "Sorry, your name's flagged." Someone had poisoned the entire industry against her. She remembered the whispers Daniel once told her in bed, that his family had connections everywhere. Judges, journalists, CEOs. She thought he was bragging, but now she understood. It was a warning. A cruel one she hadn't seen coming. She walked into the public library one afternoon, the only place left with free Wi-Fi, and Googled herself. The results made her want to vomit. blogs calling her a scammer, anonymous forums accusing her of seducing married investors. An article on a finance gossip site titled "Blackwood's Bride, From Analyst to Scandal" was the final blow. Her photo was there, smiling, hopeful, from their wedding day. And below it, a quote from an unnamed source claiming she used her body to climb the market. She clutched her stomach as a wave of nausea crashed over her, not from the pregnancy, but from the shame. It wasn't just professional exile. It was personal assassination. They wanted her buried, unhireable, unworthy, alone. She pressed a hand against her still flat belly. "I don't know how, but I'll protect you," she whipped. Spared, tears slipping down her cheeks in the quiet corner of the library. "All three of you." It didn't matter that she had no money, no connections, no place to fall back on. She had something stronger. 3 lives who would one day know that their mother didn't break when the world tried to destroy her. And somewhere deep inside, that fire flickered again, not big enough to burn yet, but enough to survive the storm. The fire inside Sofia Reyes, though dimmed by cruelty and exhaustion, refused to die. Even as the world tried to grind her into dust, she clung to the one truth that mattered. 3 innocent lives depended on her. Her belly had started to swell slightly beneath her oversized thrift store coat, but it wasn't enough to draw attention yet, only enough to remind her that time was ticking. Every job application she submitted disappeared into a void. Every lead crumbled the moment they Googled her name. The walls of her tiny studio apartment, stripped of everything valuable, now held only a mattress on the floor, a second-hand heater that groaned all night, and silence heavy enough to suffocate. Rent was overdue. The refrigerator held a half-eaten apple and 2 eggs. Her phone screen blinked with unpaid bills, threats and messages she didn't dare open. So, when she saw a crumpled flyer at the corner bodega advertising night shift janitorial work in Midtown, she didn't hesitate. It paid just enough to keep her lights on and maybe afford prenatal vitamins if she skipped meals. With swollen feet and an aching back, Sofia swept hallways, emptied trash cans, and scrubbed bathroom tiles under buzzing fluorescent lights. She kept her head down and her earbuds in, listening to instrumental playlists to drown out thoughts of what her life used to be. Conference rooms, ringing phones, glass walls, and the buzz of Wall Street. She avoided mirrors. She avoided people. He avoided hope. But fate has a strange way of showing up when you least expect it. One cold Tuesday night, while cleaning the 15th floor of a tech startup's high-rise office, Sofia entered a glass conference room still glowing with the hum of monitors left on. She paused. Something on the screen caught her eye. Lines of code, jumbled, cluttered, misaligned. Her instincts kicked in like a muscle memory she hadn't lost. Whoever wrote this algorithm had a fatal flaw in the trading logic, one that would bleed the firm millions within a week, maybe less. She stood frozen for a moment, mop in one hand, jaw clenched, torn between ignoring it and walking away, or risking everything to fix what she knew was wrong. She set the mop down slowly, her breath quickening. Sitting in the empty chair, she pulled up the terminal window and began to type. Her fingers danced with precision, adjusting timestamps, realigning variables, and correcting how the system responded to volatility spikes. In 20 minutes she had saved the system from imploding. She didn't leave a name. She didn't expect thanks. She logged off, wiped her fingerprints from the keyboard, and resumed cleaning as if nothing had happened. The next day, the office buzzed louder than usual. Tech staff clustered around monitors, whispering about how the overnight logs showed critical fixes no one claimed credit for. Sofia avoided the 15th floor, but it was too late. Someone had noticed. 2 days later, a tall, sharply dressed man cornered her near the loading dock. "Excuse me," he said, holding a tablet. "Are you Sofia Reyes?" Her heart pounded. She nodded hesitantly. "I'm Rohan Patel," he said, "CEO of Cypher Spark. We run the floor you cleaned Tuesday night." Her lips parted, unsure of what was happening. "We traced the IP," he continued, his tone part awestruck, part suspicious. "You rewrote a core component of our trading algorithm at 2:13 a.m. on a janitorial login. That patch prevented a $7 million loss. You're not just cleaning floors, you're a damn genius." Sofia's throat tightened. "I was just—" "No," he cut in. You saved my company. Who are you, really? She hesitated, her eyes searching his face for a sign of judgment, mockery, pity, but found none. So she told him. About her degree, her portfolio, her fall from grace. She didn't tell him about Daniel or the triplets, not yet. Rohan listened, arms crossed, eyes sharp. When she finished, he shook his head. I don't care what they say you did. That code was brilliance. She blinked, startled. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a desk, he said, with a locked door, full back-end access, and equity if you can build what I think you can. For the first time in months, something inside her stirred, like warmth returning to numb limbs. Why? She whispered. Why take the risk? Rohan shrugged. Because I recognize hunger, and I know sabotage when I see it. His voice softened. Come in tomorrow. We'll talk terms. He turned and walked away, leaving her breathless. She looked down at her mop, the soaked rag dripping silently onto the concrete floor like the last remnants of the life she was about to leave behind. That night, Sophia didn't cry. She didn't stare at the ceiling or wonder how she'd survive. Instead, she lay on her mattress, one hand on her belly, and whispered softly, We're going to be okay. I think we finally found a door that won't close in our face. And though she didn't know it yet, that door was the beginning of a war she would win. Not with power, not with revenge, but with brilliance, resilience, and the 3 lives growing stronger inside her every single day. The next morning, Sophia walked into Cypher Spark with trembling hands and cautious hope, stepping into the glass building not as a janitor, but as a woman reborn. Rohan gave her a badge, a desk, and something she hadn't felt in months, dignity. For the first time in what felt like lifetimes, she sat in front of a computer with purpose pulsing through her veins. She dove into work like it was oxygen, coding through contractions of fear and flickers of ambition. Days blurred into nights as she rewrote systems, optimized predictions, and crafted an algorithm that caught trends seconds before they hit the market. Her ideas saved the company twice in 1 month. Rohan, impressed and curious, kept his distance professionally, but often watched her with the eyes of someone who'd seen too many masks and respected those who wore none. But while Sophia rose quietly behind the curtains of Cypher Spark, eyes she couldn't see were beginning to turn her way. Somewhere in the steel towers of Manhattan, someone uttered her name with disdain and disgust. Blackwood eyes, Blackwood hands. The same empire that once built Daniel's fortune now turned its gaze on the woman they had tried to erase. Sophia had thought she'd buried that chapter with the ashes of her broken marriage, but shadows don't die. They wait. A week into her new position, she returned to her apartment to find a business card wedged under her door. It read, CPS, Child Protective Services. A tight chill rolled through her spine. The card had no appointment scheduled, no contact name, just the logo and a number. The next morning, a knock echoed at 7 o'clock a.m. sharp. A woman with cropped blonde hair and a clipboard stood outside, flanked by a younger male officer. We received a report, the woman said flatly. Concerns about your ability to provide a safe environment for your unborn children. Sophia's heart dropped. What? Who? We're not at liberty to disclose the source, the woman replied curtly, stepping into the apartment without asking. They examined the near-empty fridge, the mattress on the floor, the ultrasound pinned gently to the wall like a fragile hope. You work long hours? The woman asked. Night shifts? Sophia bristled. Not anymore. I'm employed full-time at Cypher Spark. I'm stable. But she could see the judgment in the woman's eyes, already writing her story in the margins of some report. No crib, no supplies, no family. Support system, the male officer mumbled. Sophia's voice cracked. I've had to rebuild from nothing. I'm doing everything I can. They left with a vague promise to follow up, leaving behind the scent of legal battles and unwanted interference. Hours later, when Rohan noticed her pale face and trembling hands, she told him everything. His eyes darkened with fury. They're trying to break you again, he whispered. This isn't just bureaucracy, it's power games. Blackwood tactics. Sophia stared at her computer screen, the code swimming in and out of focus. I thought I was invisible to them now, she said. You're not, Rohan replied. You're a threat, the woman they couldn't bury. That night, Sophia double-locked her door, placed her hand on her belly and whispered, I will not lose you. But the stress chipped away at her, each whisper of danger corroding her resolve like rust. A week later, while presenting a breakthrough algorithm to Rohan and his board, a sharp pain cut through her abdomen like lightning. She froze mid-sentence, clutching the edge of the desk, her breath stalling. Gasps followed. Rohan rushed to her side. Sophia? But she couldn't respond. The pain surged again, deeper, sharper, like the earth inside her had cracked open. Her knees buckled. A hot rush of liquid soaked through her dress. Call 911! Rohan barked as chaos erupted in the conference room. The world tilted. Her ears rang. The room dimmed at the edges. Paramedics arrived minutes later, their voices muffled under the weight of Sophia's terror. She's 32 weeks, one said. Multiple babies. Early labor. They strapped her onto a gurney as contractions took over her body like a tidal wave. Rohan ran beside her to the ambulance, gripping her hand. You'll be okay, he said, his voice desperate. You're strong. But Sophia couldn't speak. Her mind was racing, screaming silently. Not now. Not yet. Please stay inside. Please be okay. The ambulance sirens screamed louder than her thoughts as snow began to fall again outside, thick and urgent. By the time they reached the hospital, her face was pale, drenched in sweat. Doctors flooded the room. Machines beeped frantically. Triplets coming early, prep the OR, someone shouted. Through the haze, she caught a glimpse of 3 incubators wheeled into position. A nurse wiped her forehead and whispered, You're about to meet your warriors. Sophia's vision blurred as the mask was lowered onto her face. Her last thought before darkness swept her under was simple, searing and fierce. They came for me, but they will never take my children. Sophia's scream echoed through the sterile hospital corridors as her body convulsed from the sudden labor, nurses rushing her onto a gurney, alarms blaring, her vision swimming as her breath came in ragged gasps. She wasn't ready, her babies weren't ready. But fate wasn't waiting. Hours later, she awoke groggy, the ceiling light flickering above, and the sterile scent of antiseptic stung her nose as the words, "They're alive but critical," rang in her ears, shaking her to her soul. She limped into the NICU, heart thudding, and the sight stole her breath. 3 impossibly tiny lives, each in separate incubators, swaddled in wires and fragile hope. Ethan's lungs collapsed twice in a single night, Lila's heartbeat was erratic, and Ava had to be revived after flatlining. Sophia stood frozen, trembling, one hand on the glass, whispering promises of life to children barely clinging to it. Every beep from the monitors, every nurse's frown, sent a spike of fear through her spine. And yet, while other parents had partners, she had only worry, grief, and a hospital vending machine coffee in her shaking hand. She stayed beside them 20 hours a day, curling on cold chairs, massaging their tiny feet through the incubator gloves, reciting algorithms and lullabies, half for them, half to keep herself from unraveling, because each hour they lived was a battle she silently waged against fate and the Blackwoods. With bills mounting by the thousands, and hospital administrators asking questions she couldn't answer, she hacked together a makeshift workstation from her hospital tray and an old laptop, silently building financial models and running trading strategies between Ava's oxygen dips and Ethan's seizures, the glow of spreadsheets reflecting off the tears streaming down her cheeks. She coded between blood transfusions, pitched clients while holding Lila's hand through a hole in the glass, negotiated her first freelance tech deal while pumping breast milk and praying none of the nurses heard her sobbing silently at 3 a.m. Sleep was a memory, but survival was a mission. Her reputation still in shreds, she avoided public logins, used aliases, and sent invoices through shell companies, selling algorithms to companies that didn't care who she was as long as they made money. Then, just when a week passed without a medical emergency and she dared to hope they'd make it, a man in black dropped a courier envelope onto her hospital cot and walked away without a word. Inside was a single note, typed, cold, cruel. Some mistakes shouldn't survive. Her blood ran cold as she scanned the NICU, panic latching onto her throat. Were her babies in danger, even here? Her body moved instinctively, gathering the nurses, demanding security reviews, demanding cameras checked. Her maternal instincts blazing into full inferno, but nothing showed on footage. No tampering, no sabotage. Just the chilling threat left to fester in her exhausted mind. She clutched the note until her knuckles whitened, her thoughts spiraling. Was Daniel watching from London? Was it his mother? A private investigator? The CPS visit? Now this. It was a psychological war, and she was the sole soldier. She reached into her bag and retrieved her flash drive. A backup of every algorithm she'd ever created. A weapon, and put a lifeline, and buried it beneath the NICU recliner wrapped in a breast pad, just in case she never got to tell the truth herself. The hospital staff started asking more questions. The way her eyes darted every time someone new walked in, the way she jumped when machines beeped, and she tried to smile, tried to hide the war behind her eyes. But nothing could hide her fire. She was determined to make her babies' names known, not for how fragile they were, but for the empire they would one day inherit. When one of her financial predictions helped a startup gain $200,000 overnight, she used her commission to prepay a week of NICU expenses, whispering to Ava, "That's your first investment," before crying herself to sleep at their bedside. As she held her 3 fingers to the incubator's glass, one for each child, Sophia vowed silently, no matter who tried to erase them, she would make sure the world remembered. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a storm the Blackwoods never saw coming. As Sophia clutched the cruel message with trembling hands, some mistakes shouldn't survive. She looked through the NICU glass, watching her tiny warriors fight against machines that beeped with every breath they fought for, and something shifted deep within her. Fear hardened into fire. She had cried enough, bled enough, begged enough. The world had tried to bury her, but forgot she was a seed. Between NICU visits and 2-hour naps on a stiff hospital bench, she coded endlessly, perfecting the anomaly predictive algorithm she had once whispered into her dreams back when love still lived in her heart. She called it Horizon, because that's where she was headed. Horizon Analytics was born inside that sterile hospital hallway, registered with trembling fingers on a borrowed laptop as nurses scolded her to rest. She didn't rest. How could she? The triplets were barely clinging to life, and she was determined to ensure their future didn't depend on charity or pity. Her first investor was a hesitant venture capitalist who only agreed after she gave a flawless 5-minute market brew. Back down over Zoom while feeding Ava with one hand and cradling Ethan's oxygen tube with the other. It wasn't a pitch, it was a war cry wrapped in brilliance. Within months, Horizon Analytics became the whisper in Manhattan's power rooms, a ghost firm run by a mystery genius who predicted Wall Street tremors before they happened. Clients grew, power shifted, and then came the call. Sophia nearly dropped the phone when she read the name. Blackridge Equity, a firm owned by none other than Daniel's cousin, Lucas Blackwood. She wore her war paint in the form of a sleek blazer, heels borrowed from a friend, and a fire in her eyes as she walked into that meeting, daring the world to flinch first. Lucas had no idea who she was, just the brilliant CEO of Horizon. And as he slid $1 million retainer across the table, Sophia smiled politely, hiding the tsunami of poetic justice crashing inside her. But peace was a short-lived luxury. That very evening, after a long day presenting to hedge funds and double-checking Ava's feeding tube from her phone's NICU app, she stepped outside her modest office on 47th and Broadway, and a black sedan came out of nowhere. Tires screamed, horns blared, time froze. Only her instinct saved her. She dove onto the sidewalk, her palms scraping the cement, heart pounding like a drum in a funeral march. The car didn't stop. It didn't even hesitate, just vanished into traffic like a shadow swallowing the sun. Shaken and covered in bloodied grit, she sat against the wall, passers-by too busy to notice. That wasn't an accident. Her body knew what her mind hadn't yet processed. Someone wanted her gone, not ruined, erased. She stumbled back inside, locked every bolt on the office door, and checked on the triplets through the hospital app. Thank God all three were stable. But now she wasn't just fighting for their future. She was fighting for their lives. Ever. The success she gained only seemed to light darker fires in the shadows behind her. As emails flooded in with new contracts and media wanted to profile the mysterious Horizon woman, Sophia stayed silent, invisible, hiding her past behind firewalls and silence. But the ghosts were circling. And this time, they weren't just wearing suits. They were driving cars, whispering threats, and watching her every move. Still, Sophia knew one thing. The same hands that once wiped NICU glass would now sculpt empires. Let them come. Horizon wasn't just her company. It was her vengeance, written in code, carved in pain, and powered by a mother's wrath. The tires screeched past Sophia, missing her by inches as she clutched her bag of files to her chest, her breath frozen in terror. But she didn't break. Instead, she rose stronger. 10 years have passed since that near-fatal accident, and Horizon Analytics is now a market-disrupting titan with Sophia at the helm, no longer the girl who cleaned floors, but a force Wall Street fears in silence. Her life is quieter now, nestled behind layers of encrypted servers, private security, and most sacredly, the laughter of 3 extraordinary children. Ethan, now 10, wears oversized glasses and talks with algorithms in the same way other boys talk about football. He decodes the stock market like a symphony, his notebooks filled with chaotic scribbles that somehow predict economic tremors before even seasoned hedge fund managers sense a shift. His twin sister, Lila, plays the violin not for fame, but for healing. The same NICU lullabies Sophia once hummed to her in trembling whispers have become haunting concertos she performs in packed halls, audiences rising to their feet in stunned silence, not knowing the sorrow behind each note. Ava, the youngest by 3 minutes, inherited Sophia's fire, and then some. Already the founder of her own coding club, she wields tech like a sword, slicing through cyber attacks on Horizon's systems, unafraid to threaten adult competitors with a lawsuit and a smirk. The triplets each carry a shard of Sophia's survival, her brilliance split into 3 living legacies, growing in the shadows of secrecy, homeschooled under pseudonyms, their identities carefully hidden from the world that once tried to erase them. Sophia's home is fortified not just with technology, but with love. And though the wounds from the past still bleed beneath her success, she keeps her eyes forward, until the day everything shifts. It starts with a whisper. A murmured conversation at an investor gala, someone mentioning a young violinist named Lila who played a melody eerily similar to a Blackwood family waltz from decades ago. Then, a blurry photo of Ethan outside a math conference surfaces on an anonymous finance blog, followed by Ava's school project going viral, her face, defiant and sharp, catching the attention of someone who once ordered their erasure. Daniel's mother, ever paranoid and obsessed with legacy, sees the photo first. Her teacup drops. The boy, the girl, the other girl, the eyes, those unmistakable blue-grey flecks Daniel insisted were a family trait. She calls her sister-in-law, calls a private investigator. Daniel, now older, colder, and still childless in his high-profile second marriage, opens an email with 3 photos and a single line. "Look familiar?" He stares at the children, their eyes, the jawlines, Ethan's furrowed brows mid-calculation, and feels his blood drain. They are his. They are hers. And they were hidden. In that moment, a fire reignites, not of love, but of control, scandal, shame, and fury. Elsewhere, Sophia sits watching the triplets through a glass wall at their music recital, clapping quietly, unaware that shadows are gathering once again. But this time, the children are not helpless. They are brilliant, battle-born, and utterly unafraid. The Blackwoods are coming, but so is the reckoning. The day of the Global Finance Future Summit dawned crisp and golden, the New York skyline glittering like polished silver under the morning sun as Sophia stood in her penthouse, adjusting Lila's violin case strap and checking Ava's earpiece for her panel appearance, while Ethan flipped through market trend slides on his tablet like a seasoned economist. They were no longer shadows hiding from a cruel legacy. They were the spotlight now. Horizon Analytics had earned its seat, but it was the children, no, the prodigies, who drew the media storm. As they entered the grand hall, camera shutters fluttered like hummingbird wings, lights flashing as murmurs echoed, "That's Sophia Blackwood?" "No, she goes by Sophia Hart now." The Blackwood name still clung to her like smoke, but today she would own the fire. Rohan, now her trusted partner and silent investor, gave her a tight nod from the front row. The triplets each had their moments. Ava led a tech workshop and left investors speechless with her AI modeling. Lila performed a haunting solo tribute to child survivors that made the coldest economists dab their eyes. And Ethan spoke in the Youth Innovators session, identifying a hedge fund bubble no adult had yet noticed. Then came the keynote session, Sophia's panel on predictive finance, packed beyond capacity. But just as the spotlight swung toward her, a ripple moved through the crowd like a silent scream. At the back of the hall, Daniel Blackwood entered with his father and board members in tow, his posture arrogant but his gaze distracted, until it fell on Ava. She stood near the tech booth, laughing with a hedge fund rep, her sleek black pantsuit, cobalt heels and sharp brow arch slicing through the air like something Daniel had only seen once before, in a mirror. His breath caught mid-inhale, the blood draining from his face as time slammed into him like a freight train. His hand trembled. Ava turned, drawn by the weight of his stare. Their eyes locked. And in that single frozen moment, two souls recognized the truth before logic could form words. But Sophia didn't flinch. She felt the burn of his presence, but continued her talk flawlessly, even as whispers swirled. After the session, a journalist ambushed her near the stage. "Sophia Hart," the woman began, her voice dripping with curiosity masked as professionalism. "Your children, remarkable minds poised to redefine tech, music and finance. But there's one question we all want answered." Cameras tilted, recorders clicked, and the audience hushed into a breathless anticipation. "Are these the Blackwood heirs?" The journalist asked bluntly, tilting her microphone towards Sophia like a blade. The question stabbed through the air, slicing her composure in half, yet Sophia didn't blink. The triplets, standing nearby, instinctively moved closer to their mother. Daniel stood paralyzed on the edge of the stage, eyes wide with horror and recognition, lips parted in a silent plea. 1,000 memories crashed inside Sophia: abandonment, betrayal, NICU nights, algorithm scribbles in sterile hospitals, sinister notes, near deaths, CPS agents, and the day she almost bled to death giving birth to the legacy he now pretended not to know. The room waited. The journalist leaned closer. Sophia's breath hitched, but she didn't answer yet. Ava crossed her arms, jaw clenched. Ethan narrowed his eyes. Lila gripped her violin case like a sword. The heirs stood tall. The truth, once buried beneath scandal and sabotage, now teetered on the edge of revelation in a room full of Daniel's colleagues, investors, and the media. A truth that could shake the Blackwood empire to its core. As the reporter's question echoed through the packed auditorium, "Are these the Blackwood heirs?" Sophia felt the air thicken with tension, the weight of 10 hidden years crashing onto that very stage. Daniel's pale face, fixed on Ava's striking resemblance to his younger self, turned from stunned to stormy within seconds. Security and cameras circled, microphones buzzed, and Sophia gently pulled her C, Hildren close, whispering strength into their ears. That night, headlines erupted, Blackwood triplets, and by dawn, Sophia was served court papers, Daniel's family filing for emergency custody. Snow fell gently across Manhattan, blanketing the city in a quiet elegance that felt almost cinematic, like the universe itself was leaning in to witness the moment Sophia Reyes had dreamed of since she was a girl. Only tonight, that dream was about to shatter. She stood in the center of the luxurious penthouse suite at the Plaza Hotel, her heart pounding with anticipation and hope, every detail meticulously arranged. The air smelled of soft white roses, her favorite, and the gentle flicker of candlelight danced against the walls like warm memories of love, like promises waiting to be sealed. The velvet box sat on the center of the glass table like a crown jewel. Inside it, the positive pregnancy test that would change both their lives forever. She had spent hours perfecting everything, folding napkins into delicate hearts, rehearsing her words in front of the mirror, telling herself that Daniel would cry tears of joy the moment he found out he was going to be a father. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from joy. She remembered the way Daniel once whispered that she was his miracle in a world of chaos, the woman who grounded him when his own world spun with the weight of legacy and corporate greed. But as the clock ticked toward midnight and the soft jazz playing from the Bluetooth speaker faded into silence, a gnawing unease began to bloom in her chest. She checked her phone. No message, no missed calls, just silence. Then the sound of the suite door creaking open froze her breath in her throat. She turned, her smile ready to bloom, but what she saw paralyzed her. Daniel Blackwood, her husband of barely a month, stumbled in, reeking of scotch and expensive cologne, the light in his once loving eyes replaced by something cruel, distant, and ice-cold. "You're still here?" he slurred, shrugging off his coat with a careless flick of his wrist. Sophia's smile faded as quickly as her heartbeat stumbled. "Daniel, I made dinner. I have something to tell you," she said softly, trying to close the distance, but he raised his hand to stop her, eyes narrowed like she was an inconvenience, a shadow of some mistake he didn't know how to erase. "Don't," he hissed. "I can't do this. We can't do this. This whole marriage. It was a mistake." The words sliced her like glass. Her mouth opened, but no sound came out. "A mistake," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Daniel, what are you talking about?" He looked away, jaw clenched. "My family never approved of you, Sophia. You were a temporary rebellion, a distraction. I married you on impulse. My mother threatened to cut me off. My father said you were beneath us. And now, every time I look at you, I hear their voices." Sophia took a step back as if physically struck. "So, you're choosing them over me? Over us?" she whispered, one hand instinctively resting on her stomach. He scoffed. "There is no us." She couldn't breathe. Everything in her chest tightened like the room itself was collapsing. She moved to the table, picking up the velvet box with trembling fingers. "You should know something before you go," she said, opening the box with what little strength she had left. He looked down and paused. For a brief moment something flickered in his eyes, but it vanished just as quickly. "You're pregnant," he said blankly. "Congratulations," he added sarcastically. "But that doesn't change anything. I'm flying to London tonight. I've already packed my things from the penthouse. My lawyer will contact you." Sophia stood frozen as he turned, walked away and slammed the door without another word. She didn't scream. She didn't chase after him. She just stood there, surrounded by roses that mocked her, candles that still burned for a love that no longer existed, and silence that rang louder than any heartbreak she had ever known. Hours later, her trembling hands held a cheap motel key in Queens, the smell of bleach and broken dreams staining the air. She curled on the edge of a stained mattress, hugging. He wanted visitation. "He's never even bought them a single toy," Sophia yelled during a private deposition. "He buried them before they were born." Yet when the judge finally ordered Daniel to testify, he cracked. Pressed about the accounts, he stammered, evaded, and then lashed out. "She ruined me. She tricked me." The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Sophia, seated with grace, finally spoke. "I rebuilt myself while carrying your legacy in my womb. Don't confuse survival with sabotage." The judge called for recess. Sophia stepped out into the corridor, heart pounding, and Ava slipped her hand into hers. "You didn't lose anything, Mama," she whispered. "You just made them nervous." Cameras swarmed outside, reporters shouted questions, and Sophia simply lifted her chin. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, the Blackwoods bled, and they weren't ready for what came next. As the court date loomed like a guillotine in the distance, Sophia's chest felt like a cage of burning wires, tightening with each heartbeat as the weight of betrayal, fear, and maternal instinct bore down on her. Rohan's defection had struck a hole in her defenses, but the thought of Daniel's family taking her children, her lifelines, her world, was a darkness she refused to let descend. One day before the hearing, while Daniel's lawyers blustered about emergency injunctions and her phone flooded with voicemails from reporters and false allies, she quietly activated a dormant protocol she'd coded for this exact moment: Eclipse Plan. At 3:17 a.m., the triplets, still half asleep, were ushered into an unmarked SUV by a trusted Horizon driver who had no idea where they were headed, only that they must leave no digital trace. Ava clutched her tablet, whispering calculations under her breath as if solving a math riddle would make the anxiety vanish. Lila clung to her violin case like it was a life vest in stormy seas. Ethan silently watched the stars vanish from the rear window, as if memorizing the sky before it changed forever. By sunrise they were gone, passports replaced, flight paths scrambled through 4 countries, faces unrecognized by airport cameras, thanks to an AI deepfake cloaking system Sophia had built during a paranoid sleepless week long ago. Switzerland became their silent refuge, its mountains towering like guardians, its banking secrecy offering the one thing America no longer could: invisibility. A small chalet outside Zurich became their new home, with biometric locks, encrypted satellite links, and a reinforced basement doubling as a panic room and data vault. Sophia breathed easier for about 48 hours. Then the message came. No stamps, no return address. Just a velvet envelope slid under their door while they were asleep. Inside, a single typewritten line that made her stomach drop into frost. You can't hide them forever. Her fingers trembled as she burned the message in the sink, her reflection in the mirror behind the flame looking back like a stranger, haunted, brittle, but burning with fire. The next morning, she upped their digital perimeter. Ava wasn't allowed to code from public networks anymore. Ethan's market simulations had to be run offline. Lila, though longing to perform again, couldn't even post audio clips. Sophia explained it all with a forced calmness, calling it a digital retreat. But her kids saw through her with the intuition only trauma can teach. She installed new firewalls around Horizon's Swiss shell accounts and launched a phantom version of the company online to confuse trackers, while quietly shifting her more sensitive assets into crypto micro-vaults only she could decode. Despite their tight security, a drone buzzed outside their chalet one morning, too sleek, too fast to be recreational. Ethan assembled it within an hour, but inside its circuitry was a microchip labeled with the Horizon logo, a message from inside her own empire. Someone was leaking. Sophia doubled her team's vetting protocols and quietly fired 3 remote engineers who had suddenly gone dark after the custody filing. Meanwhile, the triplets began to fracture under the stress. Lila cried in her sleep, Ava grew snappier, and Ethan had developed the habit of watching the forest outside like a hawk, whispering, "They'll try the woods next." Sophia didn't sleep for more than 2 hours at a time. Every creak in the wood, every anonymous email, every server ping set her teeth on edge. When a Horizon client in Berlin requested a surprise in-person meeting, she declined without hesitation. Too risky. But then the wire transfer came anyway. The clients were paying in full. Her mind spun. Someone knew they were still operational. A week later, Sophia found Ava hacking into a satellite imaging server to check if their chalet had been tagged. Her daughter looked up and said simply, "If I can do it, so can they." That night, Sophia called a secret contact in Geneva, a banker with ties to Interpol, and offered a deal, digital access to her predictive crash algorithm in exchange for untraceable protection. The banker didn't ask questions. Hours later, she received a secondary ID chip for each child under names that couldn't be linked to Blackwood or Horizon. But her peace lasted only until the day she opened the chalet's gate to retrieve a delivery and found a child's toy, a plastic violin, painted red, lying on the step. Lila's favorite instrument, except no one in the house had lost it. That night, as her children slept, Sophia stood in the shadows of the living room, staring out the window, cradling a sleek black firearm she'd sworn she'd never need again. A single thought looped in her mind like a broken lullaby. If they come, they'll regret it. Her heart beat not just for herself anymore. It beat for 3 lives, 3 futures, 3 souls born into a storm and now expected to rise above it. And even as the mountains loomed in the dark, silent and cold, Sophia knew this wasn't escape. It was war, and she wasn't running, she was reloading. The plastic violin still lay on the windowsill like a threat wearing innocence, and Sophia hadn't slept for 3 nights when the knock finally came. Not from a drone, not through encrypted email, but from flesh and blood at her chalet's private gate. The moment she saw his face on the surveillance feed, the air left her lungs. Daniel. He stood outside, windswept and hollow-eyed, far from the polished billionaire he used to be, his tailored coat hanging off his frame like armor long cracked. Her finger hovered over the intercom button, torn between fury and fear, but the moment he whispered into the speaker, "Sophia, I didn't know about the triplets. God, I swear I didn't know." The steel in her spine buckled for a breath. The gate stayed closed. Through a thick glass panel, they met again after a decade of silence and war. "You left me in a hotel suite, bleeding and alone," she said without emotion, her eyes like daggers forged from betrayal. "You don't get to say their names." But he was shaking now. "I thought you disappeared. My family. They told me you stole from us, Sophia. They said you ran. They erased you." She laughed bitterly, a sharp, cold sound that didn't reach her eyes. "No, Daniel. They erased you from their crimes and threw me in the fire to do it." The confrontation exploded when Ava, from inside her hidden command station, interrupted over the house speakers, voice like thunder cloaked in teenage rage. "He's lying!" On screen behind her, the Blackwood Corporation's servers flickered open. Ava had hacked into Daniel's empire while he pleaded for forgiveness. Line by line, decade by decade, she projected the frauds: tax evasion, labor exploitation, offshore laundering, secret bribes, blackmail contracts, receipts. It's of corruption that stretched back before she was born. Sophia's jaw clenched. "You said you didn't know. Then explain why your name is on every wire transfer that funded the lawyers who tried to take us away." Daniel looked cornered, mouth opening but no words forming, as if the weight of his legacy had finally crashed into his ribs. Ethan entered the room quietly, his notebook clutched to his chest, murmuring, "He's crashing. He can't keep up with us anymore." But just as Daniel dropped to his knees, muttering broken apologies and begging to see them, "Just once. Let me see them, please." Sophia's burner phone buzzed. No name, just a number. One photo. Lila, blindfolded, a duct-taped mouth, a shaking violin bow in her hand. The world shattered again. Sophia dropped the phone. Ava snatched it and screamed. Ethan's face went white. In an instant, everything that mattered, everything they had protected, hidden, fought for, was stripped away. The photo had no caption, no demand, just cold proof that the storm they thought they outran had caught them in its grip. Lila was gone, and someone had taken her. Sophia's fingers trembled as she stared at the grainy image of Lila, tied to a chair, her tear-streaked face bruised, her violin-calloused hands bound cruelly with zip ties that cut into her skin. Her daughter's haunting eyes, always so full of silent music, were now clouded with fear, and that was what shattered Sophia's last shred of restraint. She clenched the phone as if her grip could somehow reverse time, but the message below the photo struck like a whip. The algorithm. Or she vanishes forever. Daniel stood frozen nearby, stunned by the threat from his own bloodline. "My father," he whispered, his voice hollow with guilt. "He's capable of anything when power's at stake." Sophia's breath hitched. She had known grief, betrayal, poverty, but never the paralyzing terror of losing a child to monsters with her DNA. She pressed her palm over her chest, as if steadying her pounding heart could give her clarity. Ethan rushed in with his laptop, his face pale, jaw set. "Mom, I ran simulations," he said urgently. "That drop location, it's a decoy, a trap. If you show up with the algorithm, they'll kill both you and Lila." His words were firm, terrifying, mathematical. Sophia's knees buckled, and Daniel caught her, his grip protective but no longer welcome. "I'll go," he offered, but she yanked away, eyes ablaze. "You gave them the weapon. They only want the mind behind it now." Meanwhile, Ava had her fists clenched so tightly her nails broke skin. "They messed with the wrong girl," she hissed, already syncing her phone with the satellite feed Ethan pulled. The twins worked in tandem, one with numbers, the other with tech, while Sophia stood in the eye of a moral storm. Give away her algorithm, the one tool she'd built to protect their future, or risk losing the very child it was meant to secure. In her silence, memories flooded. Lila's first recital, the way she curled into Sophia's lap after nightmares, how she once whispered, "Don't ever leave me, Mama." Now, it was Lila begging from the dark. Sophia shut her eyes. "We don't negotiate with devils," she said finally, and Ava looked up sharply. "So what's the plan?" Ethan tapped the screen. "I've traced an anomaly, a relay bouncing through abandoned satellites. They're hiding the signal through an encrypted tunnel, but I can backtrack it. Give me 6 hours." "You've got 4, Sophia said. "I'll stall them." She responded to the text. "Meet confirmed. No algorithm until proof of life." Seconds later, a live feed opened. Lila, barely conscious, being doused with cold water by a guard whose laughter made Sophia see red. Ava recorded everything. "We have faces now. Facial recognition will work." Daniel paced like a caged animal. "Let me fix this," he pleaded. "I didn't know." "But you helped build them," Sophia snapped, eyes like steel. "So sit down and listen while I dismantle what your family created." Her voice cut like a blade. Ethan shouted suddenly, "Got it! Geneva warehouse, rented under a shell corp your father owns." Ava hacked the locks. "Let's move." Sophia changed into black, to functional gear, braiding her hair tight, slipping the algorithm chip into a decoy USB. She kissed Ethan and Ava. "Stay close. But if I don't make it—" "Don't say that," Ava growled. "You're making it." Outside, snow began to fall like shattered glass, each flake a countdown. They reached the warehouse before dawn. Inside, shadows moved. Sophia stepped into the open, arms raised, decoy USB glinting under the light. Daniel's father emerged, flanked by guards. "You always were a brilliant little cockroach," he sneered. "But this ends now." "Where's my daughter?" Sophia demanded. "Show me she's alive." He nodded. A curtain yanked back. Lila, gagged and limp. Rage exploded in Sophia's veins. "Let her go," she said. "You'll get what you want." But just as a guard reached for Lila, Ethan's voice crackled through Sophia's earpiece. "Now!" Smoke bombs exploded. Lights died. Ava, already in position, disabled the guard's comms. Chaos unfolded. Sophia lunged forward, cutting Lila's restraints with a blade hidden in her boot. "Stay with me, baby," she whispered. Lila opened one eye, managed a small, broken smile. "Knew you'd come." Daniel burst in with a legal team and Swiss police who'd received the footage Ava leaked moments earlier. His father tried to flee but was tackled by Ethan, who whispered, "This is for my sister." Sirens wailed. Guns dropped. As dawn lit the Alps, Sophia wrapped Lila in a coat, pressing her forehead to her child's. "No algorithm," she murmured to Daniel as police dragged his father away. "But I almost gave it all up. And now I know. I'd do it again." Ava handed her the real chip. "We saved her, Mom. But we just started a war." As Ethan's voice echoed through the war room, warning that the algorithm for Lila exchange was a setup, Sophia's blood ran cold. Every motherly instinct screamed for action, but her strategist's mind knew hesitation could kill them all. Ava's hands trembled over her keyboard as she launched drones from Horizon's Zurich base, scouring the coordinates Ethan decrypted from the disguised file metadata. Each second passed like glass grinding in their chests. "They want you broken," Ethan whispered, staring at the blurry satellite image of a remote warehouse outside Geneva. "They think if they hurt one of us, You'll give them everything." Meanwhile, Daniel sat chained in Horizon's surveillance room. Sophia hadn't yet decided if he was an ally or another mask in the chaos. He had confessed everything, how his father had intercepted letters, how Daniel never saw the sonogram pictures Sophia had once sent in desperation, how his new fiancée destroyed the only apology he ever tried to mail. But forgiveness wasn't currency here. Proof was. Sophia looked at Ava and Ethan. "We go in as ghosts," she said. "They want a transaction. We give them war." In the dead of night, a convoy of blacked-out SUVs left Horizon's private tunnel. Ava directed every movement like a general, eyes glued to encrypted signals, voice firm but not yet free from fear. Sophia wore a micro-camera embedded in her earrings, transmitting live feeds to Ethan's mobile war desk, while Ava's drone hovered above the site, cloaked in storm clouds and silence. The trap unfolded quickly. Armed guards surrounded a chained Lila, who still held a shard of a violin string in her hand like a blade. Her eyes locked onto her mother's as the exchange began. Sophia walked forward, empty-handed, spine rigid with unspoken defiance. "Where's the algorithm?" growled Daniel's father, stepping from the shadows, flanked by mercenaries. "Safe," Sophia replied, "and you'll never see it." From a mile away, Ethan tapped into the guards' comms and looped false instructions. One by one, their team believed the extraction had failed, that air support was compromised. Panic sprouted like wildfire. Suddenly, smoke bombs detonated in four corners. Ava launched flash-blind drones. Lila slipped her captor's grip and sprinted. In the confusion, Daniel broke free from his restraints. Sophia had left the door to his surveillance room unlocked, a gamble that now bloomed in the chaos. He tackled his father, who screamed orders lost in the smoke, until one sharp word echoed, "Retreat." The mercenaries scattered, confused by the fake GPS signals Ethan deployed. As Lila fell into Sophia's arms, sobbing, shaking, whispering she'd tried to stay brave, Daniel knelt beside them, breathless. "You saved her," Sophia said, eyes burning. "And you almost destroyed us all." Her voice cracked, not from anger, but from the grief of a decade stolen. Daniel lowered his head. "I will spend the rest of my life making this right." But Sophia turned to her children, all three now reunited, eyes fierce and brilliant and wounded. "We make it right together, as a family built on truth, not control." Above them, Ava's drone blinked once, then dimmed. Their mission was complete. But far below the horizon, the real battle loomed. Blackwood had been bruised, not buried, and their silence tonight was a promise of vengeance yet to come. As dawn broke over the snow-covered Swiss horizon, the silence after the storm was deafening. Sophia stood on the edge of the chalet's terrace, her body trembling not from the cold, but from the weight of what had just unfolded. The rescue of Lila, the thwarted trap, and the explosive unraveling of the Blackwood Empire, now echoing through every media outlet across continents. The name Blackwood, once feared, once revered, was now synonymous with corruption, lies and betrayal, thanks to Ava's devastating data leak and Ethan's pinpoint prediction that saved their lives. Yet in this moment, Sophia wasn't thinking of victory. She was thinking of scars, of the nights she cried with silent screams while pregnant, of the courtroom humiliation, the betrayals, the relentless pursuit to strip her of her children, and how she had endured it all without ever kneeling. Now she turned and saw her children, no young warriors, standing together by the fireplace. Ava with her clenched fists and firestorm eyes, Lila with healing bruises hidden beneath her bowstring hands, and Ethan, silent, calculating, and burdened beyond his years with truths only prodigies understand. They had seen war before adulthood, and now they were shaping the peace. When Daniel arrived unannounced, his once pristine suit wrinkled, hair unkempt, and his voice barely rising above a whisper as he said, "I just wanted to see them." He didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't beg for a second chance, only looked at his children as if they were ghosts of a life he lost too soon, too foolishly. Ava refused to look at him. Ethan stayed stone-faced, but Lila, Sweet, bruised Lila stepped forward and simply said, "You lost your chance when you tried to buy what you should have protected." And her voice, soft as it was, shattered something inside Daniel that no empire collapse ever could. Later that week, while the world feasted on headlines like Blackwood Dynasty Falls, Billionaire's fraud exposed by his own daughter, and Sophia Carter, the woman who outran the machine, Sophia made one final move that would ink her story into history. Not revenge, not pettiness, but poetic justice. She acquired Blackwood Tower, the glass and steel monument that once stood as Daniel's pride and his father's throne. And at a press conference swarmed with cameras, she stood tall in a white power suit, her locks braided down her back like a crown of resilience, and declared, "This is no longer Blackwood Tower, it is now Horizon Tower, a symbol of what rises after ruin." And the applause that followed wasn't just noise, it was a reckoning. A month later, as the triplets signed their legal names, Ethan Carter, Lila Carter, Ava Carter, they sealed the final rejection of their father's bloodline, choosing instead their mother's name, the name carved from grit and grace. The family moved back to New York, not to blend in but to build. Lila opened a trauma-informed youth orchestra, Ava launched a cybersecurity firm that protected whistleblowers, and Ethan joined a hedge fund only to expose another corrupt dynasty within months. Through it all, Sophia never let herself forget the woman she had once been, the abandoned wife, the single mother hiding in safe houses, the coder working by candlelight while her babies slept on donated mattresses, and she honored her past, not with bitterness, but with boldness, mentoring young single mothers through Horizon Foundation, a program that gave scholarships, housing, and dignity to those discarded by society. As years passed, Daniel faded into silence, retreating into exile after a brief stint in prison and countless lawsuits. But Sophia never spoke ill of him, not because she forgot, but because she had nothing left to prove. On the 10th anniversary of Horizon Tower's renaming, the family hosted a gala under the stars. No red carpets, no celebrity sponsors, just survivors, thinkers and builders gathered on the rooftop where Sophia once stood alone. And as she looked at her children, Ethan delivering a toast with quiet confidence, Lila playing an original composition that made grown men cry, and Ava guiding a senator's daughter to safety from cyber threats, Sophia whispered to the night, "We were never supposed to win, and yet here we are." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sorrow, but of awe. The journey from abandoned wife to empire architect had been paved with pain, but it ended not in ashes, not in vengeance, but in legacy. An unshakable, unstoppable legacy that bore her name, carried her values, and rose, just like she did, from the fire.